What's going on, guys? Graham Jason Matthews back reviewing the Fighting with My Family movie that hit theaters this past Friday. Got the chance to see it that same day and thoroughly enjoyed it. In case you've been living under a rock for the past year or so, the movie has to do with the life story of Paige, how she broke into the business, getting signed by WWE, so on and so forth, culminating with her, spoiler, title win the night after WrestleMania 30 on Monday Night Raw, beating AJ Lee for the Divas Championship in her debut for WWE. A very good movie overall. Like I said, this was based on the original documentary. I forgot what that was called. It might be called Fighting with My Family, but I forgot what the original documentary was called. I could check it out in a second. But I remember watching it on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure it's still up on YouTube, covering the same things that you see in this movie. It has to do with Paige breaking into the business, the hardships that she had to deal with before getting to WWE, and all this other stuff. It actually is called The Wrestlers Fighting with My Family. I'm looking at it right now on Wikipedia. So yeah, that documentary had to do with Paige and how she got signed by WWE and how she started wrestling very, very young. She actually got signed at, I think, 18 years old, which is pretty unbelievable, but she got signed really, really young and was immediately assigned to their developmental territory, which was not NXT at the time, by the way. She was signed in late 2011. They don't really mention dates here in the movie. You kind of have to fill in the blanks yourself. Again, this is all fucking nitty-gritty shit. This is all, like, nitpicking. It's not like, a major criticism of the movie. Oh, it was FCW at the time, not NXT. I mentioned that to Alexis when we were watching the movie just because I want to give her some background, because the movie doesn't correctly depict everything that went on, that went on around that time when Paige was signed by WWE. Some things are a bit fabricated, some things are exaggerated. That's just the nature of documentaries and making movies. So I'm not exactly surprised, but yes, it was not FCW at the time. It wasn't NXT at the time, I should say. It was FCW at the time, called Florida Championship Wrestling. She was eventually assigned to NXT when NXT kind of came from FCW in the summer of 2012. It was there that she became the inaugural NXT Women's Champion. You wouldn't know that by watching this movie. They don't talk about that at all. The fact that she was the NXT Women's Champion when she debuted on Raw the night after WrestleMania 30. But nonetheless, again, that's all nitpicking. The movie was directed by Stephen Merchant, and when in the lead up to the release of this movie, I had seen interviews with Merchant, and I'm like, why does this guy look so familiar? I know I've seen maybe movies that he's directed or something, but like, why does this guy look so familiar? And then I realized, holy shit, it's the same guy who played that servant, I don't know what his name was, played the servant to Logan in that movie Logan that came out a few years ago. I'm not all that, immersed in the X-Men universe. I don't even know if I've seen any of the other Wolverine movies, but I did see Logan, and I fucking loved it. The guy, like the albino guy that was with Logan early on in the movie, he got killed halfway through. I'm pretty sure it was Stephen Merchant. I'm almost positive. So that's where I've seen that guy before. This movie was also produced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson executively, and it was released by WWE Studios and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Seven Bucks production company. And it feels like an indie film. As of right now, it has 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is honestly pretty damn good, considering that it's a wrestling movie and they don't really have widespread releases. The last wrestling movie I think that hit theaters was The Fucking Wrestler from 10 years ago. And it's a completely different type of film than what we saw with Beyond the Mat 10, 15, 20 years ago, which was good in its own right, but like in a different way. It was very revealing and very sad. But I enjoyed it. It was a good movie, but like a movie like that, I would hope would never make it to theaters. And the wrestling business is not perfect. I realize that. But I hate how the fucking wrestling business is typically depicted to be so negative and full of losers and people don't get it. That's basically what wrestling comes across like in the mainstream more often than not. And again, it's a different time than it was 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And the wrestler wasn't completely off with how things are in wrestling even to this day, with like the indie scene and people kind of going past their peak and, past the peak of their careers and well past their prime and still competing, on the indie level and stuff like that, and when they probably shouldn't be, and doing drugs and shit. That shit is very much a part of the wrestling industry. But we didn't really see that here, because this had to do with WWE. WWE gave The Rock full access, which I didn't even know they filmed in the Performance Center. I did not know that. But yeah, they filmed footage at the Performance Center, which wasn't around when Paige first started. She was probably training in WWE in a fucking warehouse, but close enough. They gave him full access to an arena when they were filming for a WWE Raw show 2 years ago, almost exactly. That was the same night that The Rock had FaceTime CM Punk, and he didn't pick up, but he did call The Rock back, and he tweeted him about it. It was a whole ordeal. It was pretty awesome, though. But yeah, that's when this took place, when the final footage was filmed for Paige versus AJ Lee, quotation marks, not actually AJ Lee, not actually Paige, of course. When that shit took place, it was after an episode of Raw, I think in Anaheim, I think in California, if I'm not mistaken. And The Rock did not appear on screen that night, but he did film for the movie at that point. It came off good. It came off pretty great. Playing Paige in this movie, playing AJ Lee real quick, at the end of the movie was Tia Trinidad, I think is how you pronounce her name, otherwise known as Zelina Vega, currently on WWE TV, and she played a very convincing AJ Lee. If you don't watch the footage, but you listen to it, you will think, holy shit, that's AJ Lee. So she did a good job with the role that she was given. Florence Pugh, I think is how you pronounce her last name. She plays Paige in this movie. And I thought she did great. I'm not sure what her background is, because the accent kind of went in and out. And Stephen Merchant has like it's not an English accent. It's like, I don't even know. It's some type of accent, I don't know what the fuck you would call it. But whatever Stephen Merchant's accent is, that's the type of accent that Florence Pugh sounded like she had at a few points in the movie. Her English accent kind of like went in and out. Not like American accent, but like her British accent. I don't know if she's actually British. I'm not sure. I can find out right now, actually, by clicking on her Wikipedia page. Yeah, she's an English accent. She's an English actress, but she had a different accent for some reason. It was like Cockney or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know. It was really weird. I think of like the Loch Ness Monster every time I hear Stephen Merchant's accent. Her accent was kind of weird. I don't know if that's her actual accent or if she was trying too hard to mimic the Paige accent. I don't know. But by and large, aside from that, I thought she did really, really well in the role. Someone was trying to tell me recently, oh, she looks nothing like her. Who the fuck cares? She comes enough, close enough to Paige as to what she looked like at that time with the black hair, the all black clothing, the white complexion. You don't really need much more than that to come across like Paige, to portray Paige. So I thought Florence did a pretty good job. And I looked at all the videos that WWE posted about the movie, and their promotion for the film was like in complete overdrive over the last fucking year. I remember seeing footage for the movie. Excuse me, I'm still trying to get over a cold. I remember seeing a sneak peek for the movie over WrestleMania weekend a year ago. And, they've been pushing this for a long time now, a really, really long time. And they've been promoting it ever since. So it was nice to finally see the movie make it in the theater so we can finally stop with the promotion for Fighting With My Family on WWE TV. But what was I even getting at? Oh, yeah. So WWE put up a lot of videos about the movie in the lead up to its release on Friday. Talking with Florence and talking with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, talking with Merchant, all about the movie. And Florence talked about how she kind of had to get in the role of Paige by doing the in-ring work herself. And I think Tessa Blanchard portrayed Paige for the last match with AJ Lee at the end of the movie. I completely forgot about that until after the fact. So if I go back and watch it, maybe I can see it. I don't really remember that part, but she did a lot of her own stunts. She did a lot of the in-ring work herself, and again, she came across really, really well. She came across like someone that was genuinely intrigued by the thought of wrestling and doing it, and wasn't like disgusted like, oh, this shit's beneath me. Like, no, she seemed actually interested in the role and making it out to be the best that she could, and I thought she did a really, really good job as Paige. Vince Vaughn is also in this movie. Yeah, Vince Vaughn, who I could not remember the last movie this guy was in, aside from maybe fucking Fred Claus 10 years ago. He was in this movie playing essentially the role of Bill DeMott. The tough as nails coach, fucking gives no shits. The guy I thought did a really, really good job in his role too. He was pretty funny. It's not exactly a comedy, but there are funny lines. There's a lot of like English comedy, like stuff that people may not ordinarily like understand, like a lot of like British-based comedy. But I thought it was good. Even I didn't understand it most of the time, but I thought it was pretty good. So yeah, Vince Vaughn did a good job. Jack Lowden, again, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but he plays Paige's brother, Zach the Zodiac Bevis, which is her real last name, not Knight. So we have Nick Frost as Patrick Knight, Patrick Bevis. That's Paige's father, Zach's father. He did a great job. I thought he was actually the best one in the entire movie. I thought he played Paige's father better than anyone else played their roles in this movie. And then Lena Headey, I don't know how you pronounce her last name either. She was the mom, Paige's mom in this movie. Again, I thought they were all really, really good characters, and they all did a great job of portraying their roles the best they could. James Burrows was Roy Knight, the brother that was in jail halfway through. Didn't really hear or see too much of him because he was in jail for most of the movie, and then he was released, and then he was in like the back half of the movie, but he did a good job. Stephen Merchant's actually in the movie too as Zach's wife or girlfriend's father. They show him in the beginning, and then at the end, they show him again at the end, like cheering on as Paige won the Divas Championship on Raw, which was pretty funny. Big Show makes a cameo. Sheamus makes a cameo. The Miz shows up at one point. I'm reading here on Wikipedia. Wikipedia says, let's see. Additionally, WWE wrestlers Big Show and Sheamus make appearances as themselves, while uncredited actor played John Cena. John Cena was in the movie, but it was footage from Raw when he came out to face the Wyatt family the night after Raw. Maybe that's what they're talking about. I don't know. But yeah. Oh, yeah, archival footage. That's what... Okay, I didn't read the next line. I'm an idiot. But yeah, The Miz shows up. Big Show shows up. Sheamus shows up. So cool cameos. What's his name? Dave Mastiff is actually one of the guys that tries out for WWE and doesn't make it when Paige is the only one that gets a contract. I think that part was real. There's some other things like the Paige Turner. Oh, that was Zach the Zodiac's move. I don't remember that ever being the case. I might be wrong. But I don't know if that was actually his move that Paige used, which she didn't use towards the end of her career, because she ended up using some other moves instead that were a lot better than the Paige Turner. It looked weak on paper, but whatever. It was a good move, but not as good as their other finishers that she ended up using down the road. I don't know if that was real. Yeah, there were a few things I was like, I don't know if that's actually, actually legit or not. I'm not 100% accurate. I'm not 100% sure that was what actually happened. Like the heat with the other girls, I'm sure was something that actually happened. I know Paige and Summer Rae were really good friends, I'm pretty sure. They got along really, really well. I think it was Summer Rae. I'm pretty sure it was Paige and Summer Rae who got along very well when they both first started. So those two, the three girls that she has heat with in the beginning, that eventually she comes around to liking them, they're dressed up as Eve, Alexa Bliss, and Summer Rae. So Eve was never in NXT, so clearly they're not playing Eve. Alexa Bliss maybe, because she started in NXT around the time that Paige did. So they don't really give them names. One of them is named Jerry Lynn. Not the wrestler Jerry Lynn, not the guy Jerry Lynn, not the guy that's been out of wrestling now for years, not him. There's Kirsten, Jerry Lynn, and Madison. Maybe Madison Rayne, who knows, but she was never in WWE either. So, again, the depiction of NXT I thought was great, and it's a good movie because it's not just a movie for wrestling fans. I was at work the other day, and someone was like, oh, I'm coming to see Fighting with my family, and it was someone I know. And I'm like, oh, you'll like it. And she's like, oh, I assume it's a wrestling movie. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but I think it's a good movie for people who don't ordinarily watch wrestling either. It's a good, feel-good story. And I think people that don't ordinarily watch wrestling can connect with it too. And also, too, get a better understanding for how wrestling works. With how people work their way up and how it works in WWE and the NXT system and not how everyone makes it. It's really a very select few that get promoted from developmental to WWE, let alone even get signed by the company. So again, I think in that respect, it was a great eye-opening movie for a lot of people who don't know not only Paige's story, which is a good story, but there's also 100 other people on the current roster who would have good documentaries if they made movies about them. But also just how wrestling works and how the WWE system works. I'm sure I have more to say. I mean, I thought a lot of things when I saw the movie. I probably should have taken notes, but then again, I was in a dark theater, so I'm not going to whip out a notebook halfway during the movie. I just kind of wanted to enjoy it. I might go back and see it a second time, we'll see, but I thought it was very good overall. My only real criticism coming out of it was, again, a few things were off. Some things weren't exactly accurate. But whatever, it's not that big of a deal. That's merely nitpicking. The only real thing I didn't like about the movie, and this is me as a wrestling fan knowing Paige's story, is that they didn't really go beyond the debut. I know it's a 2-hour movie. I get that. This movie's been in production now for years. They filmed for this movie in the winter of 2017, well before the last 2 years ever happened with Paige. Paige initially got hurt seriously the first time in like the summer of 2016. By that point, they were already in the process of making the movie. She was then suspended, started dating Alberto Del Rio, which I think came before that. This is not chronological order. This isn't in chronological order, but dated Del Rio, got suspended, got hurt again. She was out for a while, had the leaks around the time that they started filming for this movie, or filming for the match with AJ Lee after an episode of Raw, which wasn't a huge deal. I don't want them to cover that in this movie, but the fact that she was on the brink of suicide at one point, I don't really want them to cover the leaks themselves. That's not really necessary, but the fact that she was depressed and about to quit and wanted to go elsewhere, and then she came back, a great comeback, feel-good story, and then she got hurt again. Again, at the end of this movie, when they fade to black, and they give updates on everyone that was involved in the movie, The Rock's also in the movie quite a bit, which is fine. I love The Rock, but it's like they start out the movie with his entrance theme and like a montage of Rock clips, which will get all the non-wrestling fans interested right off the bat, because everyone knows the fucking Rock, especially from his wrestling days 15, 20 years ago. But they say, oh, The Rock went on to be involved in a lot of successful films. Like, no fucking shit, he directed this movie. I thought that was kind of stupid. But they mention, like, every member of Paige's family and how the brothers are still tag teaming over in England. And, the brother in this movie, like, the whole story was that he was a journeyman. He didn't really have what it took to make it to WWE. But Paige did, and Paige almost quit, and she had to change herself. And, again, I thought that was a great story. But in the aftermath, they're like, oh, Paige then went on to great success in WWE, ushering in the women's evolution, which is true. She did. In the beginning, she didn't change the place right off the bat, but, she had a great debut. And that was it. They don't see anything else about Paige, which blew my mind, considering that she retired from the ring over a year ago. It's not like she retired a month or two ago and the movie was already made. Oh shit, we can't add anything to it. She retired a long time ago. She has not wrestled a match since late 2017. I understand they probably didn't want to end on a sour note, but imagine people who don't watch wrestling go out of their way to watch Paige now knowing like, oh, she has a great story, I'm a big fan of her, I want to see more of her work. They look her up now, she's not even on the show. Unless she's promoting Fighting With My Family, she's not even the SmackDown GM anymore. So I thought that was kind of weird. They never once mentioned that she's retired. So I thought that was, again, really, really, I mean, that's not something you kind of throw up in one of those graphics. Like, yeah, she's retired now, sorry, LOL. But, I thought that was strange that they omitted that. But you can make a much longer movie about Paige. Again, on the surface, this was a great story, and I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. As an indie film, I thought it was really, really well done. And I'll talk about the box office shit in a second. But you could have gone on for another hour about the shit that she had done with her on the main roster, which wasn't really all that intriguing. But, the Divas Revolution and Team PCB and winning the Divas Championship a few times, and then the shit in the last couple of years alone with the suicide stuff and the issues with Del Rio and everything else would have been a completely different movie, mind you. Would really have had not much to do with the family, but then again, maybe it would have, because the family came forth during all of her issues and were like, yeah, we stand by Paige, and she's kind of fucked up right now, and we're trying to help her out, she's trying to quit, she's trying to kill herself, like, holy shit. So the family has still been involved in recent years, even still in recent months, and like Total Divas when Paige was on that show. You would still see the family pop up on like FaceTime and stuff. So she's obviously very close to her family. And they could have stretched this out a little longer than they did. But again, as a casual fans movie, I thought this was very good. For the box office stuff, for those saying like, oh, it bombed. Like, was it ever really expected to do well? Especially in a weekend where How to Train Your Dragon 3 came out. And it grossed like over $270 million, which is hardly a surprise. So it might have come out in the wrong weekend. I know the movie was supposed to be released originally. I remember the original release date being like September of 2018, which might have been better because most movies don't come out in September, and not many kids' movies come out in September. So it might have been better timing at that point to do the movie in September as opposed to February when How to Train Your Dragon's coming after, like the Lego movie, which I also saw the same day as Fighting With My Family and thoroughly enjoyed that too. I thought the timing was a little, not great, but still they had there's a couple good movies out right now, so I'm not entirely surprised the movie didn't, do record, numbers at the box office, but it might get better. And usually it's the movies that get good reviews with Rotten Tomatoes that people go out and see. So maybe it's a case like people will now know it's a good movie, then go out of their way to go watch it. Come next weekend, we'll see. So it didn't shatter the box office by any means, but it was a very good movie, and I'm just kind of happy that it did well, Rotten Tomatoes wise, and it's getting great reviews, because usually with wrestling movies, people kind of dismiss it right off the bat, and they shit all over it, and, it doesn't really get any traction, but this movie did for different reasons than The Wrestler did, which was great. So I implore everyone to check it out in theaters now. Fighting with My Family, the story of Paige, life and career of Paige, current WWE superstar, albeit outside of the ring. So check that out when you get a chance. Well worth the time, especially if you're a wrestling fan. Go out and support Fighting with My Family, if only to support the wrestling community. We're finally being represented in a positive light, which is amazing. So I'm very happy to see that. But check it out. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I might be back at some point with another movie review. We'll see. I kind of do these far and few between, sometimes with Star Wars movies, sometimes with other movies. Jumanji, I think I reviewed about a year ago. I think they're currently filming the second one, or third one, whatever, with The Rock and Jack Black and Kevin Hart and Karen Gillian, whatever her name is. So, I might do more movie reviews in the future. We'll see. But I thought it was especially good to review this one, just because it is a wrestling film, and it was kind of relevant to what I talk about every single week right here on the channel. So check out Fighting with My Family, guys. I sound like WWE here, fucking shoving the movie down your throats and promoting it every 5 seconds. But on that note, guys, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.